right the Minister of Human Rights of the Republic of Yemen, Mohammed, Mohsen, Askar. Just that you know that the Human Rights Ministry has been existing since 2004, which is quite unique in the world with a few other countries. Then we have, on my further right, Dr. Hessa Al Ghadeer, Advisor to the Supervisor, Training and Capacity Building, Planning and Development of the KS Relief Center. And on my left, Dr. Abdullah Saleh, Almoallem, Director of Medical and Environmental Aid Department at KS Relief Center. So as you see, we have really the key people for discussing women and children in Yemen. And I want to just tell you a few facts that, for those who don't know, is a good reminder. The Secretary General in April 2018, Antonio Guterres, said, "The war in Yemen is now the world's worst humanitarian crisis, with more than 22 million people, 3/4 of the population, in desperate need of aid and protection." And that is to say, clean drinking water, it is food, it is shelter, it is security, and the most vulnerable people are women and children. On the humanitarian aid response, we have donors, and that is why this panel is important. The two biggest countries donors are the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. So we are very happy to have them here, and they're going to each, one after the other, address key issues, an overview, all the environment and health needs and protection, and the women and children. It will also be illustrated with videos and with case witness and studies on all the projects that are done and what needs to be done in a crisis that we hope can be solved in the 21st century. And if I could just give some input, is that we have seen this before. There are models of how this can escalate in a deadlock where we cannot get out of. But we are in the 21st century, we are a global world, and we have innovative ways to tackle a situation differently with all the minds and the wills in the world. And I hope that this panel is also going to give you some input, and you as well, on how we can solve and advance the human rights violation and the health and security and life of people on the ground. So with that, I'm very happy to give the floor first to Mohammed Mohsen Askar, Minister of Human Rights, Republic of Yemen. Your Excellency.
Thank you, Astrid. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am pleased to be with you today, and I will give you a speech on focusing on the situation of human rights in Yemen, the most violations of human rights, and we will focusing today on the women and children, considering that they are the most suffering of all people in Yemen, women and children, from the 2014, when the coup occupied all the institutions in the capital of Sana'a. Why do women and children need help in Yemen? As you know that in any war in the world, when it's begin in any time, all the elements of the conflict can't end this war, but at the middle, mostly the children and the women are suffering from this war. So we will find here that the violations on the children is the biggest violations in Yemen. We can find here that killing or maiming, the 6 grave violations against children, the militias of Al-Houthi are acted in Yemen. The first one, killing and mining of children. We have 1,371 killed and 3,882 injured. And more than 15,000 of children are recruitment of children by the militias of Al-Houthi. And we have 489 abduction of children, and the 5 of the violation. We have relieved, tracked more 500 relief ship and 65 that the militia of Al-Houthi stopped and or take this humanitarian aids for the children, and they moving it to the war. We have on the violence of the woman, and from September 2014 until May 2018, more than 814 killed of women and 4,179 injured. This is all women violated by militia Al-Houthi from the September 2014 until May 2018. You can find some of the pictures here for the children, and the more than 274 lost their limbs, and that's the landmines. Most of the victims are because the landmines, the militias put the landmines everywhere, on the squares, on the streets, on the village, on the villages, on the fields. They didn't care about the children and women. So we find the victims of lying of mines, as you said, many of children, girls and boys, women. Types of mines used by Al-Houthi. The Al-Houthi used many kinds and types of the mines. Anti-personnel mines, which the Yemen signed for prevented the personal mines in 2008. We signed on the treaty to prohibit this landmines, but the militia Al-Houthi, backed by Iran, used now and separated to use it. This is the types of the mines. We have here decised mines, and we have the sea mines. Recruitment of the children. The militias not only destroyed our prisons, but also they destroy our future from now. They took most of the people from the schools to the battles, and they used the schools in arming actions or operations. So the children didn't go to the schools, but they took them to the fronts. Also, they didn't pay the salaries for the teachers, because they took the money from the port of Al-Hudaydah and took all this money and to continue their war. But they didn't pay any salary for the health care or the education. So the teachers don't go to the schools so that the people didn't find any kind of education. Also, they use the need of the families and give them $100 in order as salary for this family to bring one of their children to go with the militias. You will find this is all kind symbols of that children. Attacked against education and health facilities. The total number of schools destroyed or damaged is 1,962 schools. They use it, as I said, for the weapon stores as weapon stores or the army operations. This deprived children from their right to education in more than 959 schools in different provinces. Taiz and Aden are the most affected provinces where schools are still used. Aden now is liberated, but they used it before and destroyed this school. School looted the contents of orphanages in Sana'a and Al-Mahwit. They use this orphanage for the training the children to be used as soldiers. Attacks on hospitals and health facilities. More than 180 hospitals and health facilities in 70 provinces were damaged due to Houthi coup. Hospitals were attacked, converted into military barracks. Weapons depots and access to medicines were prevented. Figures from some hospitals show that more than 140 children died in 2015 due to the spread of Dengue Fever, with more than 10,000 children catching that disease. Large number of the children also died due to cholera outbreak in Yemen. Denial of humanitarian assistance to children. Houthi militias looted more than 500 relief consignments, prevented the docking of 65 ships, and bombarded 4 aid trucks. You will find in this slide how the Houthis are cutting many of the humanitarian aids to reach the people they need. You will find on March 2017 more than 208 trucks they prevented. On October 2016, attack on UAE ship. On May 2015, the Suez aid ship carrying 7 tons from relief of KS. July 2017, also many trucks of the KS relief which carry medicine, they also took them. Violence against women. This is the the second topic of this speech. Figures between September 2014 to May 2018, more than 814 women were killed and 4,179 others were injured. The recommendations for what we need from the international community. We hope that the international community and all the international organizations are making pressure on the and exercise pressure on the Houthi militia to stop the practice of child recruitment mine lines, using school as military positions, and violence against women. And at the end, could I let you now with the short film about an activist called Riham al-Badr, which is 28 years old, whom killed by the Houthi snaps in Taiz city while she was accessing humanitarian aids to civilians. You now with the short film about an activist called Riham al-Badr, which is 28 years old, whom killed by the Houthi snaps in Taiz city while she was accessing humanitarian aids to civilians. You now with the short film about an activist called Riham al-Badr, which is 28 years old, whom killed by the Houthi snaps in Taiz city while she was accessing humanitarian aids to civilians. You now with the short film about an activist called Riham al-Badr, which is 28 years old, whom killed by the Houthi snaps in Taiz city while she was accessing
شهيدة ريهام البدر كانت أكثر من مجرد راصدة وأكثر من مجرد ناشطة وكانت راعية.
كان يوما حزينا لحقوق الإنسان في اليمن استشهاد الشهيدة ريهام البدر، تلك الناشطة التي قدمت روحها فداء للحقيقة وللوطن وللضحايا. كانت مثالا وقدوة ونموذجا لكل ناشط يسعى
شهيدة ريهام البدر كانت أكثر من مجرد راصدة وأكثر
اندهشنا أيضا بنشاط ريهام وحماسها وتمسكها بمشروع الدولة وأيضا بمخرجات الحوار الوطني.
تعرفت على الشهيدة ريهام في 2011 كمدربة لي وهذا شرف كبير.
كانت ريهام تجتاز تلك المناطق لتوصل لهم الإغاثات، وفي يدها اليمنى وفي يدها اليسرى ورقة ترصد بها الانتهاكات الدائرة في تلك المناطق. ريهام البدر بدخولها مع الشهيد مؤمن في تلك المناطق فقدت حياتها وهي تمارس عملها الإنساني.
أيضا بمخرجات الحوار الوطني.
تعرفت على الشهيدة ريهام في 2011 كمدربة لي وهذا شرف كبير.
كانت ريهام تجتاز تلك المناطق لتوصل لهم الإغاثات، وفي يدها اليمنى وفي يدها اليسرى ورقة ترصد بها الانتهاكات الدائرة في تلك المناطق. ريهام البدر بدخولها مع الشهيد مؤمن في تلك المناطق فقدت حياتها. رجعت ريهام عملها الإنساني
تعرفت على الشهيدة ريهام في 2011 كمدربة لي وهذا شرف كبير.
كانت ريهام تجتاز تلك المناطق لتوصل لهم الإغاثات، وفي يدها اليمنى وفي يدها اليسرى ورقة ترصد بها الانتهاكات الدائرة في تلك المناطق. ريهام البدر بدخولها مع الشهيد مؤمن في تلك المناطق فقدت حياتها. رجعت ريهام
في مدينة تحس وسط اليمن. ولدت ريهام
تعرفت على الشهيدة ريهام
وتحررت في
كمدربة لي وهذا شرف كبير.
كانت ريهام تجتاز تلك المناطق لتوصل لهم الإغاثات، وفي يدها اليمنى وفي يدها اليسرى ورقة ترصد بها الانتهاكات الدائرة في تلك المناطق. ريهام البدر بدخولها مع الشهيد مؤمن في تلك المناطق فقدت حياتها. رجعت ريهام
في مدينة تحس وسط اليمن. ولدت
ريهام
وتحررت في
كمدربة لي وهذا شرف كبير.
كانت ريهام تجتاز تلك المناطق لتوصل لهم الإغاثات، وفي يدها اليمنى.
شهيدة ريهام البدر كناشطة حقوقية بدأت مبكرا في عمر مبكر، بدأت عملها الحقوقي والإنساني.
لم تكن في الجانب الإغاثي والإنساني فقط منذ اندلاع الحرب أو منذ اندلاع ثورة الشباب السلمية في 2011، إنما كانت لها بصمات من قبل ذلك. كانت تعمل في المجال الإنساني من قبل ثورة 2011، إنما عرفها الناس في 2011 ثورة الشباب السلمية.
منذ 2008 تهتم كثير في بالأنشطة الشبابية، لها العديد من المؤسسات، أسست العديد من المبادرات والمنظمات.
كان للريهام دور بارز في مسألة تفعيل مؤسسة الدولة في محافظة تعز بعد الانهيار الذي حصل بسبب الانقلاب.
لم تكن تعلم أن تاريخ ميلادها سيصادف يوم 40 وفاتها في تزامن جريح ومثير للتأمل.
رحيل الشهيدة ريهام البدر شكل فراغ كبير في الوسط الحقوقي والإنساني.
في صباح يوم دام من أيام تعز المحاصرة، استيقظت ريهام على موعد لتسيير قافلة غذائية حملت اسم أسامة سلام، الشهيد الذي لم يمضي على استشهاده سوى بضعة أيام. بدأت الرحلة رفقة زميلها مؤمن. كانت خطواتهما تسير كالمعتاد، بينما كانت عيون القناصة تترصدهما لتلفظ أنفاسها في يوم حزين.
كانت نموذجا وكانت قدوة لكل ناشط يمني وكل ناشط إنساني يسعى إلى ويبحث عن الحقيقة ويرصدها بحيادية وبموضوعية. الرحمة لك يا ريهام، والخلود لك ولكل الشهداء الذين قدموا أرواحهم دفاعا عن الحق ودفاعا عن الحقيقة ودفاعا عن الإنسان.
كانت ريهام شاهدة على أحداث قنص المدنيين في تعز منذ اجتاحتها آلة القتل التابعة لميليشيا الحوثي وصالح الانقلابية.
كناشطين أو كمنظمات، إذا أردنا أن نتأكد من وجود حادثة في مدينة تعز، مثلا سقوط أطفال، سقوط كنا نتواصل مع ريهام البدر.
من أول خطوة لريهام في الحياة حتى آخر خطوة، لم تكن حياة الفتاة اعتيادية. لقد عاشت ريهام كشاهدة وشهيدة على أحداث مفصلية في تاريخ اليمن.
المدنيين التي احتجز فيها عدد 6 من الأشخاص، حركة اللجنة الوطنية بعد التحقيقات حركة اللجنة الوطنية.
عندما سقطت صنعاء في يد الجماعات المسلحة، كان هنا التحدي الأبرز للقناعات المدنية، وكانت ريهام في المقدمة.
كانت أحد الأعمدة الرئيسية في العمل الشبابي داخل هذه المدينة الصامدة.
وبين ثنائية المأساة وقتل الشهود، يعيش اليمن وتعز جروحا مفتوحة جراء انتهاكات حقوق الإنسان. عندما وضعت خطواتها الأولى في الجامعة، لمعت عيناها على الكتب، وسكن في وعيها مفاهيم جديدة: حقوق الإنسان، حماية المدنيين في الصراع، القانون الدولي الإنساني، الجرائم الجسيمة. لم تكن تعلم أن تلك المفاهيم التي سمعتها لأول مرة ستكون هي أبرز المعنيين بها، وستدفع حياتها ثمنا لإنسانيتها ووعيها الجديد.
هنا تجلى الدور الأبرز لريهام. هنا تجلى هنا النشاط المدني باعتباره ثقافة، سلوك، ممارسة. ريهام حضرت إلى جانب كل الحالمين بالدولة. كانت ترى أن النشاط المدني لابد أن يحضر، أنه حتى السلاح الذي رفع في مقاومة المشروع التدميري هو محمول بثقافة مدنية.
دفعت روحها ثمنا لقضية الحقيقة ولأجل الإنسانية في هذه المدينة.
رأت ريهام رفاقها وهم يبحثون عن الحياة وعن الحرية، يكافحون لأجل النور. شاهدت لمعات أعينهم وهم يجوبون الشوارع والأماكن المحاصرة في سبيل إسناد الضحايا. شاهدت المدرجين بدمائهم وعيونهم مطبقة بلا حياة وبلا ضوء.
كانت تصل إلى أكثر كما قلت أكثر الأماكن خطورة، والتي يصعب على الجهات الإغاثية والرجال الوصول إليها، ولكن ريهام لأنها حملت القضية بداخلها وحملت حب الوطن بداخلها أصرت إلا أن تصل إلى تلك المناطق التي لم يصل لها أحد.
عملت على الوصول إلى الضحايا في المناطق الخطرة، عملت على توثيق الجرائم المرتكبة ضد المدنيين، وثقت بشكل كبير جرائم القنص وجرائم القصف العشوائي واستهداف التجمعات السكانية والمدنيين.
لقد انطفأت عدسة رفيقها المصور محمد القدسي وهو يوثق لحظات القصف على المدنيين. شاهدت ريهام على الشاشات كيف أردت رصاصة قناص الميليشيا المصور أحمد الشيباني، وسجلت شهادات الأمهات والآباء وهم يسردون صنوف الانتهاكات التي تعرض لها
منذ الصباح الباكر حتى نهاية اليوم، وهي تقوم بعمل مستمر بمقابلة ورصد كل الأضرار التي تحدث للمدنيين بسبب الحرب. ريهام أيضا كان لها دور بارز في إنجاح العديد من التقارير، في التقرير الأول لشبكة الراصدين، وكان يركز بدرجة أساسية على الطفولة، على النساء، على معاناة المدنيين في مدينة تعز، الحصار الخانق الذي شهدته مدينة تعز خلال 3 سنوات.
كراصدة حقوقية وثقت ريهام الدمار. لم تكن تعلم أنها ستكون أحد ضحايا الحرب على مدينتها تعز المحاصرة منذ سنوات.
ريهام كانت شاهدة ماثلة على جرائم الميليشيات الحوثية بحق هذه المدينة. في سبيل هذه الشهادة استشهدت لتكشف هذه النهاية حجم الوحشية التي تحملها تلك الميليشيا لمدينة السلم والثقافة.
في الأيام الأولى من فبراير علقت ريهام البدر عن رحيل رفيقيها محمد القدسي وأسامة سلام، كيف ستأتي ذكرى ثورة الشباب وقد غادر الحياة، لم يعود ضمن أولئك الذين سيوقدون شعلة الحرية في مدينة جراحها مفتوحة. وبينما كانت تتحسر على غياب رفيقيها، لم تكن تعرف أنها أيضا ستكون غائبة ذلك اليوم.
تعبانة ولا شنسي ريهام، لا أمامك.
توقفت أنفاس ريهام وظل صوتها الذي ردد نشيد البلاد حاضرا مثل التفاصيل الخالدة لا يمحوها غبار السنين.
And many UN rapporteurs in the United Nations have mentioned and made reports. Of course, when you look at the basic needs, all the violation on the rights to basic needs, the right to food, the right to water, the right to shelter, have been violated in a crisis like this. But also the activities of schools and the institutions, and also the governance. So it is at many levels, and this is why this is a very big crisis at the multilateral, multi-sectorial level. And we're going to go now to the health and environment sector with Dr. Abdullah Saleh Almoallem, Director of Medical and Environmental Aid, Department of KS Relief Center. And before he starts, maybe I will just also mention that the cholera outbreak is, according to WHO, the biggest recorded outbreak on cholera, current, but also historically in numbers. And when you know, I've been involved in the international health regulation on pandemics and epidemics, and when you know that we have deserved with University of Geneva and WHO 3 years of training in all regions, and it has followed up from 2009 to 2012 and more, cholera outbreak is one of the easiest to prevent and to control and to heal. And this is why it is a crisis that is almost not understandable, but I'm sure you will give us some clues why we cannot understand that it keeps on. Thank you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Astrid. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am here just to give you an overview about the humanitarian situation in Yemen in general. As His Excellency said, and Astrid said, it is the biggest humanitarian crisis across the globe, and we are working with it through King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center. A lot of efforts have been done, and a lot of efforts to be done by the international community. Yemen is actually, they are facing multiple crises in different sectors like shelter, food security. There is a risk of famine and a risk of outbreaks of diseases like what Astrid mentioned, like cholera, dengue fever, and diphtheria. So just to start, I will show you some historical part about Yemen. Yemen before this conflict is well known to be a poor country, and it was the poorest country in the Middle East. And the gross development per capita was 1,209, which is the lowest in the Middle East and in the nearby countries. So this is before the conflict, actually. And as poverty and lack of viable livelihood were endemic there, and as shown by the World Food Programme, that Yemen population were food insecure in 40% of them, and almost 50% of children are stunted in this country. That is before the conflict. As well as there was a weak infrastructure and instability in protection, early recovery, nutrition, health, as well as education and wash and sanitation. There were also violations of human rights and exploitations and abuse before the current conflict, and there was a displacement and lack of access to services and to livelihood in return areas, because that time there was more than one conflict. I think it's 3 conflicts between the Houthi militias, which are part of the current conflict, and Saleh troops that time, as well as there was a bad administration and lack of resources. So if you have to take kind of review about the humanitarian situation, according to the OCHA, the population of Yemen nowadays is 23.3 million, out of them 22.2, which is a major proportion, needs humanitarian assistance. And the total number in acute need are more than 11 millions. So the population movement and the internally displaced people are more than 3.4 millions. Here, where King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center is working, it is working in different sectors of humanitarian aid, and the total budget or total fund till now is something beyond $1.6 billion. We are working in different sectors in Yemen, as we are working in 40 other countries in the world, across the globe. We are working in health, in food security, early recovery, multi-cluster, as well as humanitarian emergency, water sanitation, hygiene, as well as protection, logistics, and emergency telecommunication, as well as education. So this is the humanitarian response to 2018. The requested by the OCHA is $2.96 million. Initially, the response was with 1.5, funded in the 23rd of June 2018, followed by 1.5 billion by coalition, and lastly by Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, the comprehensive humanitarian support plan to Yemen with $1 billion. Now I'll come to talk about the infectious disease in Yemen, and maybe you heard from Astrid the cholera epidemic. And everybody of us should know that cholera is endemic in Yemen all the year. And there was an epidemic in 2010. That is the times of Saleh troops and militias conflict, which stopped, and we had another, unfortunately, an outbreak during this conflict, which was in October 2016. The number of affected cases were more than 1 million, and deaths actually more than 2,200, with a case fatality rate of 0.21. Here is showing the graph quickly how the cholera increased, and with time it came down, and fortunately the epidemic is over. We worried about the last month and this month about cholera, but fortunately the situation is very calming and very reassuring. Till now, we don't have any evidence of any coming epidemic. Here is the King Salman response to cholera outbreak. It is more than $83 million, started by 1.2 million for medical supplies and drugs to Yemen, then followed by a share of 8.2 million immediate support provided to the WHO, and followed by a $7 million to the International Medical Corps for WASH programs, and eventually by a very generous fund from the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to Yemen, divided equally, almost equally, between the WHO and the UNICEF for prevention, treatment, as well as vaccination of children and adults of Yemen. This is a small clip just to show you our efforts. No, it's not working. Okay. We'll go then to the dengue fever, another disease, infectious disease that's happened in Yemen. It was more than 30,000 cases, 23,000 cases in 2016. Last year, the number came down to 10, and the deaths were only 8. And we covered this program by spreading the vector. We have contracts of $2 million, and fortunately, it came down. No more cases of dengue fever nowadays. Okay.
There's a car with diplomatic plates, number 1 and 61, which is in the middle of the road. I don't know if someone here does it. 161.
I'll talk about diphtheria, which is another killing infectious disease, especially for children. There was more than 1,600 cases. We combat cholera by more than one program with a total budget of $34 million. And fortunately, we signed contracts with the different organizations, including UNICEF, for the mass vaccination of children of Yemen. The last contract was $5 million contract, and it's coming down, fortunately. So the total effort to support the health sector in Yemen, we are having contracts with the private sector in Yemen to treat casualties and Yemeni people with $20 million for the private hospitals, with $126 million supporting governmental hospitals, as well as supplying it with medicines, pharmaceutical, and medical equipments. And there were more than 100 million for utilizing and treating Yemeni casualties and chronic diseases, cancers outside Yemen, inside Saudi Arabia, in India, in Sudan, as well as in Jordan. And our support also to human rights is to combat malnutrition, and we have more than one contract to treat young children. The statistic is showing that there is more than 400,000 children that are in acute malnutrition, means that they need immediate attention and action. So we signed a contract with UNICEF with $7 million to combat this malnutrition. Here is our food security programs going to Yemen. And this is one of our unique shelter projects we are doing for Yemeni refugees in Djibouti. This is in an area called Obukh. It is for 1,500 refugees. It is a well-built camp, depending on solar system for production of electricity and water. Here's the tragedy, as His Excellency mentioned, of the landmines, of the explosions, of the ammunitions, and what happened to the innocent people. They got the amputated limbs, and we have to rehabilitate them. We already have one amputee center in Ma'rib in Yemen, one in Aden, and one in Taz, and we are having contract with the ICRC with $10 million to treat children as they are victims of the landmines and sea mines as well. So we have the artificial limb center in Ma'rib, costing us more than $1 million per one round. And here is the picture of this center. Here's the tragedy, actually. You can see on your left-hand side, there is a girl called Ala. She was playing at her home, and suddenly an explosion came from a bomb blast from Houthi side, and by which she was affected, and she lost her left limb. She got amputated limb on the left. These cases, actually, especially in children, they are difficult because the prosthesis or the artificial limb has to grow with the child, and they need a special type of clever artificial limbs. This is why such cases we are transferring to higher centers inside Saudi Arabia, and we are taking them by air jets to Saudi Arabia. We transferred this girl to Jeddah, and fortunately now she has the left limb with her family as well. On the left side, there is a picture of a child who has got a male child, by the way, who has got the explosion of the landmine and lost, unfortunately, a tragedy and a very sad situation. She lost her 3 limbs, 2 lower limbs and 1 left upper limbs. We took this this boy to Jeddah, and he's now under winning the prosthesis and manufacturing of different limbs. It's a very difficult case, even from a medical point of view, to provide the limb. And just in mines, as a doctor, I'll tell you, mines effects are 3, actually, in general. One is if you put your foot in the mine, it will explode. And if you are in the desert most of the time, you will die because you will bleed and die. Nobody will help you. But if, fortunately, you become alive, then you will lose the lower limb and you'll get amputated. The other situation is where the mine explodes in front of you. In this case, you will have scattered injuries in your bodies, and at that time, it will be minimal, but scattered injuries all over your body. The other, which is Houthi militias are doing, they are, as His Excellency showed, they are bringing a special, attractive, colored type of landmines. They are like toys. So it's taken by children, like what happened with this innocent boy, and does explode. With this explosion, you will lose minimum of 2 limbs, upper limbs, and maybe lower limb. But you will get blindness as well. So you lose your vision. This is the most dangerous, is toy type of landmines. He is transferring the patient. This is our colleague from Jeddah. He's taking care of one of the children. And this girl, the one I showed you first in the left side, she was brought to Jeddah. And after 2 months, because she was with her father and mother, she called us to bring her elder brothers. Unfortunately, we brought them. Unfortunately, the video is not showing. She was laughing, playing, happy with her 2 brothers coming from Ta'az. Ta'az at the time was blocked or seized by the Houthi militias. And it's very difficult through the tribes and through the international organization to bring such child for medical care. Just yesterday, in Geneva here, I was called for a conjoined twins, Siamese twins in MCH hospital in Saada, in Sana'a, which is a Houthi-occupied areas. And we responded in Saudi Arabia very quickly yesterday to bring them to Saudi Arabia for separation. This is a very unique and noble program. We just launched 9 days ago. This is a program which is really preventive, which helps to eradicate the landmines in Yemen. Yemen has got more than 1 million landmines, especially in the Houthi-occupied areas, territories, and in the borders of these Houthi-occupied territories, because they want to prevent themselves from the attack of the other party. So they keep these mines on their borders. There are more than 1 million. Also, there are sea mines in Yemen. So we decide to make a special noble program that help Yemen for the future. And this program has been launched 9 days ago. The program is costing $40 million. It has been signed and put into work. This program is for the early and rapid clearance of landmines and explosive remnants of war from the Yemeni territory. And the contract, one part of it, is to train 400 Yemeni people to clear the mines from Yemen. The other national program we have for the child rights is the national program for the conjoined twins. as Saudi Arabia is expert in conjoined twins. We have a very expert surgeons in this field. We separated 3 children from the Houthi occupied areas. This is the first one, 2015. Abdullah and Abdulaziz has been separated, followed by Ahmed has been separated. He was from Taz during the Taz siege. And here is another twin who has been separated, Yusuf, on 8 August 2015, and successful, thanks God. This is the problem we faced during Taz siege as King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center. What to do to provide medical supplies, food, and non-food items to people who are inside Taz. So we drop all these food and non-food items as well as medical supplies from the sky by aeroplanes. But we could not be able to drop the oxygen cylinders for the hospital. There was an acute need of oxygen for sick patients in the hospitals. So an idea came that we should take these oxygen cylinders on the back of the camels and donkeys and other animals through a rough mountain roads, and we managed, thanks God, to save thousands of lives in Yemen, in Taz hospitals. But we did not stop here. We continue to provide oxygen generator for Taz. Until now, we signed a contract with WHO to provide 11 oxygen generators. Generators means that generate oxygen from the ordinary air. Unfortunately, they are in place, working now, so no more lack of oxygen in this area. Here is some violations of the Houthi militias. Apart from using small young soldiers, they are putting AAAs, or what is termed as anti-aircraft artilleries, on the roof of the buildings, endangering the life of civilians in that areas. Here is the share of Saudi Arabia on the official development assistance from the gross national income. As you know, the target by the United Nations organization is 0.7% of the gross national income. Saudi Arabia, fortunately, has reached 1.9, which is almost triple the targeted figure. And here are some of our valuable partners in King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Centers. We work with local, regional, international, and United Nations organizations. At the end, I will say that we urge here to urge the international community actually to put pressure on Houthi militias just to respect the international humanitarian law, especially the Roma statute of criminal court, as well as the International Labor Organization Convention, as well as the Geneva Convention, which is very important, has been signed by many countries, and to put pressure on the Houthi militias also to obey and put on place and the international resolutions, the United Nations resolutions, especially Resolution 2218, which could end the war and to come to a negotiation table. We hope that a day sooner will come and the war would end and peace will prevail. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Almoallem, for this very precise data and overview of the health and security and the whole situation. It's very also interesting that you brought some innovative, adaptable, accessible way to bring things to a hospital that is on search. So it's very interesting to underline this. We are going now to go on the also more specified women and children issues with Dr. Hessa Al Ghadeer. She's advisor to the supervisor, training and capacity building, planning and development of the KS Relief Center. And she will also have a video and talk from the. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Astrid. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be talking today about the new initiatives which have been implemented by King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center on relief and protection for women and children in Yemen. And then I will be talking about one of our successful and sustainable, in fact, child projects, which is well known as Child Soldier Project, or our rehabilitation program for armed children in Yemen. Let me, before just give you a short and brief introduction about King Salman Humanitarian and Aid and Relief Center. Practicing compassionate humanity means taking immediate and effective response to help people in need, especially the most vulnerable, women and children. King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center has been working since its inception in 2015 to save the lives of thousands of people around the globe. It has implemented more than 426 projects in more than 40 countries worldwide, out of which Yemen has received 262 projects as we speak. Until now, with a total cost of more than 1.6 billion US dollars, which means that 66% of the total cost, or of the center's programs, have been implemented in Yemen. KS Relief Center, in fact, adheres to, as my colleague has stated earlier, it adheres to all humanitarian principles, to international law, to international humanitarian law, and during emerging dangers and hardships in the affected areas, women and children are always among the most vulnerable and tend to suffer the most. KS Relief Center, in fact, collaborates with 80 strategic partners, international organizations, local governmental entities, regional and local NGOs, to design and implement humanitarian programs which provide suitable solutions to reduce the impact of these challenges and challenging conditions. The center operates these projects impartially in different parts of Yemen. Okay, at this KS Relief Center, we do really understand this reality. We do really understand that the most vulnerable in times of crisis are the ones who need the humanitarian assistance. Therefore, we started developing specific programs that exclusively care for Yemeni women and for Yemeni children who are undergoing all kinds of hardships due to the unfortunately, to the number of violations being practiced by the Houthi militias. I will briefly highlight some of the challenges facing KS Relief Center in Yemen and offer after that a brief summary of our protection and relief efforts which have contributed to reducing some of these hardships. Yemen, as my colleague has stated earlier and confirmed, suffers from extreme poverty and lack of viable means of viable means of social support, widespread human rights violations, which led again to two things: high abuse rate in Yemen, and then rising waves of displaced families, women, and children. food insecurity and high level of malnutrition rate in children under the age of 5. These are among the challenges that we have faced in Yemen. Against this background, KS Relief is always keen to identify the root causes of these challenges, and especially those confronting women and children. KS Relief Center, which is a women and a child-focused center, has so far launched 71 projects in Yemen dedicated to women in different sectors. Among these sectors, education, protection, food security, shelter, health, nutrition, water, sanitation, and wash. And regarding the total number of the projects that we have implemented for the sake of children and women, we reach 154 projects in health, food, protection, shelter, and education and nutrition, among many others, at the total cost of $3 million. KS Relief develops ongoing programs to protect the rights of displaced groups. We have in Yemen, especially, for the welfare of women and children, have been subjected, unfortunately, to serious violations led by the Houthi militias. We have witnessed waves and waves of displaced Yemeni families in Somalia and also in Djibouti. And KS Relief Center responded by supporting several projects to help Yemeni refugees' families, including women, children, and reunited more than 12,000 families, children, and women. We allocate resources to foster for the refugee families. They live now in fully equipped residence supported by the center. This slide shows the number of our child-focused projects. We reached 120 projects in very, very important, significant humanitarian sectors, including food, education, protection, and health. Beyond Yemen's borders, KS Relief also helped those whom we do call in our country visitors. Yemeni visitors reach more than 500,000 Yemeni, from which 200,085 children under the age of 18 receive free educational and health care services in Saudi Arabia. Okay. We also address the high rate of poverty and lack of viable means of livelihood. As we have mentioned before, one of the most crucial challenges that Yemen has witnessed is the high rate of poverty. And so in our center, we focused more on livelihood projects in order to train, to rehabilitate thousands of women and men for employment, and a number of these projects were implemented in order to improve the social and economic conditions of Yemeni families. If in Yemen alone there are 3.11 million displaced persons, in one of our projects we target more than 500,000 displaced families and women and children, including the host communities. We do really believe that education is the future of children. So education is the most powerful investment in the future of children in Yemen. We have launched so far 8 or probably 10 projects in education. We focused on inclusion, equity, and gender equality to offer a proper and equal educational opportunities. And in this context, we do urge other humanitarian organizations to focus and expand more on their relief projects on education projects in Yemen. The center also has overseen health care services, which also targeted hundreds of thousands of women. My colleague has covered all these aspects. Maternity and infant health care projects represent one of our greater humanitarian sectors. Now, I'll be focusing on one of our most successful and sustainable programs. We call it rehabilitation program for children, for armed children in Yemen. Just let me give you a brief summary of this program. Child soldiers are any children under the age of 18 who are recruited and used as fighters or as human shields or as messengers or for other purposes. So according to Yemeni officials, we have at least 20,000 child soldiers in Yemen. Case Relief Center aims to prevent this illegal and inhumane act through one of its sustainable humanitarian projects to save the future of these innocent children. Look at the picture here, and this picture, tells the huge difference between peace and terrorism, between peace, between the future and destruction. So the primary objective, in fact, for this sustainable program is to rehabilitate child soldiers and war-affected children, regardless of their political or ethnic background. As we stated earlier, the center is impartial. It is dedicated for saving the human life everywhere. So through this program, we need to save these children from any terrorist implications in the future. We need to save these children from the evil hands of terrorism, extremism, and violence. And Houthi militias recruited innocent children in areas under their control, forcing them to participate in a ruthless conflict. So as we speak, Case Relief Center in the Yemeni Center of Marib has launched its 5th and 6th phases of the program, in which 240 children have been rehabilitated. Some of the program's contributions include the 2,000 child soldier rehabilitation program falls into 2 major stages. Stage number 1 falls in over the course of 1 month, where the children do receive psychological, social, cultural, and educational rehabilitation sessions. The second is what we call post-treatment and assessment plan, which falls into 4 months to ensure that the children have managed to integrate in their community peacefully. Also, during this kind of rehabilitation program, we also conduct lots of awareness activities targeted the parents and the relatives of these children. 6,000 indirect and 240 children have benefited from this program. The total cost is more than $600,000 US. And so based on our ongoing humanitarian efforts at Case Relief Center, I will finally underscore the importance of the humanitarian situation of Yemen and children. And also, I need to suggest the following issues. We need to ensure respect from the regarding the Houthi militias in Yemen. We need to ensure respect for the rules of international humanitarian law, taking all the feasible measures to ensure protection and care for armed children in Yemen. We need to focus also on effective relief plans and specialized programs concerning Yemeni women and children. We need to build a very effective international cooperation for improving the living conditions of children in Yemen. Also, international humanitarian organizations need also to promote more sustainable and protection and relief efforts and initiatives to counter all acts of violations against human rights of Yemeni women and children. Finally, I would like to invite you to watch a brief documentary video on our rehabilitation child soldier program. Could you help us with that, please? So we'll try our best.
It's the one. Sorry. Yeah.
Yes. Lights.
Yes. So you can
lights.
see it.
Yeah. Okay. The lights.
It's the one.
أكثر من 20,000 طفل استخدموا كجنود حرب وأدوات حرب وكذلك دروع بشرية.
And I hope to have a very good overview now of the situation and how the contribution and efforts of chaos relief and in Yemen to try and mitigate the crisis on health, on human rights violation, and on many other aspects. So the floor is yours now. If you have questions, comments, Mr. Ambassador, your Excellency.
Thank you very much for all the panelists. It is really great to hear from distinguished panelists. Now, if Madam Chair, if you allow me to address His Excellency the Minister. His Excellency the Minister, first of all, the video which you have shown us is very touching, especially for me. I appreciate what you have presented to us. Second, that you have mentioned 6 grave violations committed by the Houthis or the militias. I think if you might add, if I can suggest to you that to add, the other grave violation is grave to right of life in Yemen, and destroying trade and economy totally of the country, threatening of international maritime water route. And most important is threatening international peace and security, by launching, attacking the neighbors by the militias, which it is grave international threat to peace and security. And now I have a point or a question to you. You have mentioned that about this video. I would like to hear from you, Your Excellency, about the international prize which has been suggested for Riham al-Badr. So as the Ministry of Human Rights, what is your program, what is your step in order to make this prize available to the whole world and to speak in behalf of what Riham has shown us from effectiveness? So I think Riham, she deserves after all this. And I have just, if Madam Chair, you can allow me that for Dr. Almoallem and Madam Hessa, that now you show us what is KS Relief Center contribution to the whole Yemen. But what we are witnessing, what we are hearing from misleading reports and from some international mechanism, whether affiliated to international press or some international NGOs working with humanitarian aspects of life, false report. I would like to hear from you, what is your, both of you, what is your messages to those who are contracting with your excellent contribution center? Thank you, Madam.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, you would like to?
Okay, after that, more questions? Or
You
no?
wanted, I think, are you ready to answer?
Yes, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you for your question. I would like to clear something here. First of all, I thank you for this is the small effort from the Ministry of Human Rights for this activists. This woman or this girl give us a good motivation to continue in this road of reporting all the violations of human rights. We concentrate on the 6 grave violations. It's against children. Was the UN mentioned that there is 6 violations, grave violations of children. But I am agree with you that the militias of Al-Houthi acted more than that. They acted war crimes, humanitarian crimes. They threatened the international maritime on the seas. All of these crimes, we reported it. But this session is about children and women, so we concern about the grave 6 violations. The other point you say about the Riham al-Badr Prize, this is a good suggestion. We are studied it before, and we now negotiate with some international institutions to put this prize as a humanitarian prize for institutions. But as we in the Ministry of Human Rights, we named our big hall of the training hall of the Ministry of Human Rights in Yemen, called this hall of Riham al-Badr. So now in Aden we have a hall. We named her name in this hall. That's what I would like to say, and thank you.
Thank you.
So your question is about the other people or the other media who are not believing on the efforts and the effects that has been done by King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center. Saudi Arabia has been till now, in the last 3 years, since the inception of this relief center, believe it or not, $11.1 billion to Yemen. That is 1.8 is the humanitarian aid, 3 million for the Central Bank of Yemen, and 2 are bilateral cooperation between the two governments, and like 2 million for the Yemeni visitors or refugees who are living in Saudi Arabia. And the last one is the comprehensive plan. Together with Emirates, the share of Saudi Arabia was half of that 1 billion, which is $500 million. So this is well known even to the United Nations agencies and organizations. The second thing is, if you just hear the media 2 days ago, Mrs. Virginia Gambia, which is the representative of the High Commissioner from the United Nations, she said that the King Salman Relief Center is a referential example that countries should follow. It's a referential example that countries should follow in its humanitarian aid and relief of the suffering people. We are working, as my colleague said, in 40 countries, and we have more than 439 projects all over the world, and our work is very impartial. This means we are working impartial as to religion, to gender, to race, even to the political opinion. The other thing is that we follow and we are highly committed to the international humanitarian law, and we have documents for all what we have done to Yemen and to other parts of the world. Everything is documented, and we ask you, if you are most welcome to visit us in the center headquarters in Riyadh. We will show you or any other journalist the comments. And we gave the chance even to international media, those from BBC, from CNN, from all other international media, to visit not only Saudi Arabia, but to visit Maghreb and Yemen. And they have seen our projects there with their eyes. They have seen, and some they have acknowledged the center for its effort in Yemen. One thing also to mention is that not only the response to Yemen, but even the flash appeal from the United Nations. There was a flash appeal, first flash appeal of the United Nations to Yemen was needing like $274 million. And this is the only time in history that one country has responded completely to the whole flash appeal. That is Saudi Arabia, through the King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center. And this is well known, documented in the United Nations. And as I show you in the figure, our share is 1.9% of our gross national income. That is really a great, or triple the number targeted by the United Nations. But if somebody doesn't want to believe, what we can do for him, we are inviting anybody to see. We have, you know, media is playing everywhere. But the truth is that who's taking care now of Yemeni economy? You know, the Yemeni economy has collapsed. A 3 billion generous donation from the custodian of the two holy mosques came in a moment to the Central Bank of Yemen. And that is well known. It came in the media. $3 billion to the Central Bank. So the economy has collapsed because of the malicious type of administration and the looting and confiscations of the Yemeni militias to our aids are well documented in the center and everywhere in the United Nations. So we are working with all these difficulties, with all these obstacles, and we try to show our work to the people. But if somebody doesn't want to believe, what shall we do? I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much for the question, which is very important. As my colleague has stated, the center is impartial. The center is dedicated to help people in need everywhere. And one of our recent initiatives that you may visit on our website is what we call the Saudi Aid platform, where it is accessible by those who are interested to see and read the most recent reports with numbers, with target countries, and in order to answer this question, because we need, in the center, we need to document, and this is one of our important objectives, to document these relief efforts, and as they said, the language of numbers doesn't lie. The effect or the impact of relief projects is usually tangible. You can see it, and you can, in fact, measure the impact of humanitarian assistance. We are not working alone. We are working with our partners who do represent UN organizations. We also work with governmental entities, local governmental entities, and credible NGOs. And we share with them our monthly reports in order to prevent as much as we can the misleading and false misconception of our humanitarian works. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hessa. Other questions, remarks?
There is an question to add something.
Or comments? Yeah, please take the microphone.
Thank you, everybody. I am Lisa Al-Badoui. I'm from Yemen. I am researcher for the human rights. I want to ask about, thank you so much for the film about the Riham, Allah yarhamha. And the same as Mr. Ibrahim for the sentiment, Mashair. I am very sad for about the story for the Riham. I want to ask you, Mr. Mohammed, about the plan, your plan in the Hudaydah now. The Hudaydah, it's many difficult, the situation, the human rights in Hudaydah. Will you have the plan for the Aide, the humanitarian in the Hudaydah? Because there is more 4,900 family to go out from the center Hudaydah, but they don't have the money to change another place. It's more peace for them. Thank you so much.
It's a concrete question, so.
Thank you. Actually, Hudaydah, I thank you for this question because Hudaydah is the hot story in Yemen crisis. Hudaydah is the main important port in Yemen now. More than 70% of the humanitarian assistance coming by this boat, and more than 25% of people are suffering from decreasing of food. So the government of Yemen decided to liberate this port because we want to end this war, and the port, when it is in the hand of the militias, the war it is continue, and the suffering of Yemeni people is continue. So we would like to end all the story by liberating the main point of the financial money to the militia. And we asked, as I had held a press conference in Cairo 2-3 weeks ago, and asked, and thanks, by the way, I would like to thank most thanks of us as government of Yemen for the Saudi Arabia, especially on the King Salman Center, because they are the most rule of humanitarian aids in Yemen by this center, actually. And we'd like to thank the Emirates and all the actors in Yemen, UN agencies. But actually, the main responsibility or the main carried by the King Salman Center. And we asked all the international organizations to build some places, safe places for the displacement people. And now in Aden, thousands of people are coming, and in Sana'a also, but we need actually. And by the way, I would like to thank the initiative of the Center of King Salman and the brothers in Emirates. They initiated that the bridges of by sky and by lands and by maritime to bring tracks and ships for the aids of Al Hudaydah people especially. So already now money of assistance, humanitarian assistance are there. It's around of the place of military actions, but we hope all the international organizations are going in this way, as the King Salman and Emirates are did. Thank you.
Can I add something? And Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center is already on the border of Hudaydah with its personnel and international organization and local NGOs. We are already distributing for the last 1 month, maybe food basket to the internally displaced persons. And we have chosen with the United Arab Emirates a place where we are building camps for expected internally displaced personnel. And all our programs, health programs, are included. Hudaydah is part of it. And one thing I have to announce here is that not Hudaydah, but Hajjah and Sa'dah, which are Houthi-occupied areas. There are 2 big hospitals. These 2 big hospitals are run by King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center. So we are budgeting like 140 million Saudi riyals a year for these hospitals. And the Houthis, they know that Saudi Arabia is operating these hospitals. But they are allowing the trucks carrying medical supplies to these hospitals and not allowing or fighting or violating the other trucks that carrying food baskets, or they confiscate or loot it actually and use the money they get from selling it in the black market for fighting and for the battlefield effort. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other questions? Comments? From the panel, you would like to make some comments? We still have 10 minutes.
I would like just to add one more thing, which is very important. When I discussed the rehabilitation program for armed children in Yemen, actually we are going through the first stage, or rather the first component of the program, which targets armed children and children affected by war. And the second, which targets again 2,000 children. And the second component of the program is targeting girls affected by war in Yemen. So that's another challenging program that we will be launching very, very soon. So the humanitarian condition in Yemen is very crucial, and as all of the panelists have stated, we do urge the international communications to cooperate and to help to reduce the humanitarian condition, the very crucial humanitarian condition in regard to human rights for women and children, which do need a lot of attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other journalists would like to intervene? Marit? No. Yes, Ronald Barnes, Ambassador Ronald.
Is it? Okay, thank you for the presentation. I'm from International People's Charter. I have witnessed the witnesses message and asked for humanitarian aid, but there seems to be some geopolitical questions that we were presented about not only the conflict, how do you respond, because to witness and see, I see that there is a serious need for the human, for the people, for the women, for the children, who are not part of this geopolitical conflict as some may describe it. And sometimes they ask for evidence. Because behind this, they say, well, Iran, and then there's United States, there's a coalition, there's various actors. How do you respond to this, especially when it gets down to the nitty-gritty of the human need, which is what you're expressing today? Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone want to answer? It is true that we have very conflicting reports, and depending on which news you see online, you can see completely contradictory reports on what's going on. And thank you for being transparent and offering journalists to come and see your center and to go on the ground to see what's going on. And I can just make a comment that I'm referring a lot, given the confusion on data sometimes, on information, to United Nations reports, because normally it is a consensus, and I must say that the consensus and the UN reports, and you are collaborating a lot with the UN, is backing what is said here. And that's what I can say. We are here to help human development, which the United Nations is doing, and it is appalling to see that the crisis is recognized. The UN Security Council made resolutions that year by year they are reconfirming and reconfirming. And this recognized data, this recognized emergency, and we wonder why are they not stopping the militia, because people on the ground are suffering. And it's true that what you're saying, Ron, is a human development process is disrupted, the institutions are disrupted, you are building your own hospitals in another country. I mean, this is a new type of saving a country from a surge. But I don't know if you have something to say on this, because it is true that people who are listening and journalists who are listening to you, you've tried to give some answers. Can you give some answers on all this confusion on the geopolitics that is going on with words and narratives?
Okay, we think that the international organizations are not biased, actually. The United Nations resolution on Houthi militias are more than 5 or 6. None of them has been complied with from the Houthi side. And concerning mines and landmines, what is being done is really against humanity. And they don't even provide the international community with the map distribution of these mines. This is well known. Second, it is a coup, actually. If you go to history, during Saleh time, who was the president that time, and it was a legitimate government, this is a coup. Houthi militias are not more than 50,000 people. Yemen population is 29 million. They are really like ISIS. I look at them. They are the other extreme of ISIS. You know, their ideology is more or less the same. If you look at them, so they are looking for a future political project. They are planning to. Coup happened because of the bad administration of Saleh and his people that time. And don't forget that they are launching missiles to Saudi Arabia. They have launched more than 154 missiles to Saudi Arabia One of them, or the last 2 weeks, I attended myself and see on the sky of the capital Riyadh 2 Scud missiles that has been attacked or fired by anti-aircraft artilleries, as well as they are launching small rockets or shells to Saudi Arabia, more than 66,000 to Saudi Arabia. And people maybe doesn't know that there are Saudi internally displaced persons. We have more than 20 internally displaced Saudis from the borders of Yemeni because of these rockets and shell launched to Saudi Arabia. We have damaged mosques, which are very religious to us. Hospitals has been damaged in Saudi Arabia because of Houthi effect and actions. So people maybe doesn't know that we suffered in Saudi Arabia, not only from economic point of view, supplying Yemen, helping our neighbors and friends, but also we are suffering. We have killed persons, civilians, more than 108 civilians has been killed, and more than 974, as I could remember, has been injured because of these rockets. So violation of the international humanitarian law is more and is happening from the Houthi militias, as they are ideology. Their ideology is they are extremists. I look to them, as I said to you, they are the other surface of the coin of ISIS. The other thing is that we called them for a negotiation more than once, and even the UN resolution asked for a negotiation. It was, I could remember, Doctor, maybe remind me, it was in Kuwait, once in Oman, one on the border of Saudi Arabia, one here in Geneva, but they did not comply to the peace. We called them now even for a peace negotiation and to come to the peace table. They did not come. They are ideologists and they are supported by a well-known country, Iran, and you know what Iran is doing there. It's supporting the terrorism through Hezbollah and through other organizations of the same ideology. Thank you.
I'd like to add small points for your question, Mr. Ricardo. The war in Yemen and this humanitarian crisis happened in Yemen. It's from the day of a coup on the legitimate authorities, legitimate institutions. They occupied everywhere in the capital of Sana'a. So we're suffering from this militia. We're suffering from the war crimes. We're suffering from they occupied the camps of the whole army. They occupied all institutions. So they have agenda, Iranian agenda. They backed by Iran. It's clearly. We and the USA bring in New York in the UN. They had a press conference and brought some of the evidences that mines made by from Iran. This the technology which Iran give us. But the other side, our brothers in Saudi Arabia, they give us humanitarian aid. That's our message. Should be clear. This is the situation in Yemen. And the second point, the international community is unified in Yemen, Yemenified. So they published a resolution of many resolutions, and especially 2216. And what we need now to make peace in Yemen is to implement this resolution. And if we end this coup and implement all the international and UN resolutions, Security Council resolutions, we will find us in the place of peace. But now, these militias refused all the initiatives of peace. That's what's happened in Yemen. But thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Hessa? Well, thank you. Oh, yes, please. Yes, it will be. No problem. It's free speech.
Okay, thank you for this little piece of information. The coup started in 21 September 2014, and the Yemeni people make a resistance for this coup and asked the help from our brothers of Saudi Arabia, and they came to help us in March of 2015. So there is a gap of 6 months that the people of Yemen resistance this occupied by the militias. So it's the war starts by the militias, not by the Arab coalition. Thank you.
Well, this shows with this last question that we need to question our ethics about information. And the UN, for the moment, has doing reports. So if the reports of the UN are questioned, you can question for every report of the UN. And this is where I think there is a cognitive dissonance here, because this is, for the moment, our reference in the world and working with the UN. The UN has, so if there is any question, then they have to question all the reports. And we need then an ethical committee who will start looking at fake news in the UN. But for the moment, this is our reference. And being in Geneva and with its great instrument, very complicated, a fantastic global instrument, we can only think that there are, places for innovative ways to deal with the world that is in such conflict and crisis, also with news. I thank you really all for this panel, and to those who are listening, for your questions. And I am now on behalf of the panel and of some, we are offering you a lunch upstairs on the terrace, and are looking forward to your continuous effort on helping the Yemeni people on the ground. And anybody listening to this, I hope they will also make their efforts for peace dialogue and peace communication in the news. Thank you.
Thank you.